you have the gloves, so yeah, if you want to do your best Wookiee pose.
Hi everybody, I'm Carly King and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here with Brandon Allinger. Welcome.
Hi Carly.
Nice to see you.
Welcome to
As
propstore.
always. Thank you so much. Talk to me a little bit about what's in front of us right now.
Yeah, this is a really good one. This is the original Chewbacca Bowcaster. And one of the things that is really special about it is it's actually used in all 3 movies.
Right.
And then for a little bit of bonus on top, it was also used in the holiday special. We've been researching this thing for a few months. It's been a real journey of discovery. It's a really interesting piece. You know, a lot of the props in the original Star Wars films were repurposed out of real world artifacts, right?
Right.
Sure you know this.
This is a real, it's a Horton?
It's a Horton crossbow, yeah.
Right.
And so just like the Han Solo gun was built out of a Mauser and Luke's lightsaber is made out of a Graflex, they took real world found parts and they dressed them up, right, to make them science fiction. So this one, you know, they rented the bow from Bapty, which is the famous UK weapons rental house where a lot of the props from Star Wars were sourced, and they dressed it up with the scopes and the sort of the cords and the dials and things that you're seeing on the side of it. And then at the end of production, it went back to Bapty. We think Bapty sold this about 10 years after they finished on Return of the Jedi. And when they sold it, the original dressing parts were not present, and they rebuilt it with some inaccurate dressing parts, which have since been taken off, and it's basically been re-restored. But the key to this thing, the real sort of interesting point, is the shoulder stock extension down here.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, so that is not something you would see on a standard Horton crossbow. That was put on specifically for Return of the Jedi.
Was it because Peter Mayhew's arms are so long?
Probably.
Yeah,
but
I was
it's interesting
that
it took them 3 movies to get there, because in the first and second movie it didn't have that. It was just the standard crossbow. But maybe they thought they were going to be doing more battle action or something. Maybe a prop guy said, hey, what can we do to make your life better? And he said, I need a shoulder stock extension. So it's interesting because you don't see the prop that many times in Return of the Jedi, and you might not pick up on this little extension if you weren't looking for it. But when you go and look for it, like in this production still here, you know, this is a publicity photo that was just taken at the time at Elstree Studios. You can see very clearly the extension there on the shoulder stock. So that's sort of the first big indicator of authenticity. And then when you go in and you start really studying it, you'll see things like little drops of glue on the sides of it here where the coils were originally fixed in. And there's overspray like in the inside of the frame here from where they had the side plates installed, and then they spray painted it. So there's a lot of tells to authenticity, and there's even some markings here. I think there's like a marking here on the back of the shoulder stock that you see in a production photo from the very first movie. And that's how we know it was used in all 3 films.
I was going to ask, you said it's been used in all 3 films and the holiday special. Is this the only one in existence?
As far as we know. As far as we know, and as far as all evidence suggests, meaning any photo where you can see it well, you can match up some scratches, some marks, some tells to say it's this one. No one's ever seen another one. There's no other out there that is known to exist that's genuine. So as far as we know, this is the one and only that Peter Mayhew used in all 3 Star Wars films.
And that's rare when it comes to a screen-used prop, to have only one.
No, that's right. I mean, I think it sort of speaks to the you know, I'll say slightly low budget. They weren't really low budget, but maybe slightly low budget, especially the first one, nature of the Star Wars films, and probably just the availability. You know, it's probably a thing where Bapty only had one of these crossbows, so they couldn't necessarily take another.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. They're like, don't mess up.
No
pressure at all.
Take care of it. Take care of it. But it made it. It made it through all 3 films. So.
Well, again, this is like I said, the mecca. Like, I can't even imagine owning this. How much do you think it's gonna?
So the pre-sale auction estimate on this one is $250,000 to $500,000.
Wow.
You know, when you have pieces like this that are one of a kind and unique, it's really hard to know what they're going to go for, because there's not necessarily a great comparison point. You know, I can't think of another like Chewbacca piece that's in the same realm as this that has gone through public auction before. So hard to know, and that's part of the the reasons that auctions work and that auctions are fun is the bidders are ultimately going to set the price, right? The interest level is going to determine what the final price is, and really it's kind of the only way to sell these one-of-a-kind unique items, because otherwise how would you determine the price that it should be?
Is this all original too? What parts are
okay, that's a good question.
All original? Yeah.
Right, so to walk through kind of what is original to it, the main thing is the bow itself, which is like the frame, which is made out of metal that's apparently coated with like a nylon or some kind of plastic.
It seems like a plastic cover to it.
It's got a plastic texture, but I think it's metal underneath. And then obviously you've got the crossbow part at the front. The bowstring has been with it since it left Bapti. Very likely the bowstring that's on it in Empire and Jedi, because another interesting thing is, I don't know if I covered this before, but they basically, they totally changed the dressing after the first movie. So they dressed it once for the first movie. It looked very similar to this. Right. And then probably right when they wrapped on the first movie, they just stripped it. They said, Star Wars is done, take it back to a crossbow.
No one's gonna want it.
And then they needed it for the holiday special. And they said, oh, well, we stripped it, so we have to reinstall the dressing. They reinstalled similar but different dressing. So like the side plates here, where these dials are mounted on the sides, those get much longer between Star Wars and the later versions of it. If you look at it in the first movie, they're short, and then for holiday special onward, they're longer. Things like these telephone wires.
Yeah,
in the first movie, they're on both sides, and when you look at this side, you'll see some glue on there where they were fixed in. Yeah, and then later, it was just on the right side, like we have it now. So
that's amazing.
It's basically been rebuilt to its later configuration because that made the most sense to tie in with the shoulder stock that was only from Return of the Jedi, but it is the same base bow that was used in all 3 films. So the replica parts are basically the side plates with the dials, the barrel assembly here on the top, the telephone coil wires, and the rubber balls that are out at the end of the bow arm, which is, you know, they probably put
rubber?
on. Yeah, they're rubber.
They look almost. And they look metal.
Peter Mayhew said they were rubber in the films.
Nice.
They probably put those on there so that he didn't take anybody's eye out
That's true.
as he's
That makes
spinning
sense.
around in his Wookiee suit, you know?
I guess you could say that if it wasn't for the holiday special, we wouldn't be standing in front of this right now.
I guess that's right. That's one of many things that the holiday special gave us.
One of the many things that the holiday special gave us.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for chatting with us about the Bowcaster. This is incredible.
Thanks. Yeah, no, we're really happy to have it here, and it's going to be fascinating to see what it sells for.
Yeah, and whoever gets this is the luckiest person alive, truly.
You have the gloves, so yeah, if you want to do your best Wookiee pose.
That's the worst. I can't believe we're standing in front of this right now. This is a Medal of Yavin. How many are known in existence?
Two. So we think they only made 2 for the movie.
For Han and Luke, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Sorry, Chewie. No medal
Sorry,
for you.
Chewie. One day.
Yeah, but he got a Bowcaster.
We got a Bowcaster.
Yeah, which is
Pretty
here.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great piece. This is another great piece that's in the upcoming auction. This is something we've actually been aware of it for more than 10 years. It's taken a while for it to come to market, but it is, going to be available. It's the first time that one of the medals has ever been up for public auction. The other one is out there. The other one is in a private collection. And this was another one that we did a lot of research on. And what we found is there's basically behind-the-scenes photos from the rehearsals. In those behind-the-scenes photos, they're sort of swapped. So they didn't necessarily keep one medal for one actor and another medal for the other actor. They were just using them interchangeably, which of course makes sense because they're not, they're not any different visually. They're the same piece essentially.
How were you able to decipher which was which?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really the sort of wear and markings that you see on the surface. So for example, like you see that kind of darker spot up there in the corner, and there's like a little vertical line down here at the edge of the circle in the center of it. And when you go in, you study the high resolution production photos or 4K screenshots, you can see some of those things specifically. You can also see on the Harrison Ford medal, the one that he wore in the film, similar but different markings. And then we have photos of the other one that's out there in the private collection, and it matches exactly to that. So in short, this was worn by Harrison Ford in some of the production photos, which seemed like they were doing rehearsals. And then in the final movie, they swapped, and Mark Hamill's wearing this one. But it was worn by both. So if you're not a fan of just one actor, we've got both covered here.
That is nuts. I feel like hypothetically in another world, if I were to be able to afford this and buy it for my collection, I would have to wear it at some point.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
I'm pretty sure no one has put it on since it's been here. Look, it's amazing. It's a piece of history. It's totally memorable. It's such a key part of that first movie. It's actually, I think, the very last thing that you see on screen in the first film because it's like that shot of Han and Luke. And then we wipe to the George Lucas director's card. So, what can you say? It's just, it's a really, it's incredibly simple, but it's also incredibly significant.
Wow. What is the actual metal made of? Because
I think it's like a cast resin.
It's a cast resin? Okay.
Yeah. And then it's fixed to the band here with some screws that go down through the top of it. And then the band is kind of stitched back on itself on the other side. And someone said, I don't know whether this is confirmed or not, but someone said that the band is made out of British military necktie. But it's a great piece, and we talked about the Bowcaster. There's not a lot in the world of Star Wars prop collecting that relates to the main characters.
Right.
So like things come up like Stormtrooper helmets or Stormtrooper blasters.
Rare. It's even rare when those come out. But
this is sort of like a notch up from that because it is the principal cast. It's those main actors. Look, Stormtrooper helmets are wonderful, but this is sort of it's on another level.
Yeah.
You know?
And how much is this estimated to go for?
Estimate on this one is $300,000 to $600,000.
Now, I spotted this in a glass case out there before, and I was like, what could that be? And then I realized, looking at the lines lining up, and of course the color, that it had to be a C-3PO shoe.
Yeah, this is this is 3PO's left foot, I guess, from Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi. Cool. And so we've seen a couple of these before. We've also had some hands before, and the story here is basically they revised the approach to the shoes and the gloves, if you will, for the second film. And I think on the first movie, you basically had like vacuum formed thin plastic covers on the shoes, and then the hands were like separate metal components. For the sequels, they went to these basically cast vinyl, which is like what you're seeing here, this brown rubbery material that has some flexibility to it. Right. So it was just a one-piece shoe or glove. So we don't know whether this is Empire or Jedi. Could have been in both. And you can see, obviously, a lot of the finish has worn away, but it is an original C-3PO foot, which is pretty neat.
It looks like he's been trekking through some sand.
He's seen some action,
definitely. He's seen some action, that's
right. And it's always interesting how the finishes wear on these. Like here, the gold color on the toe has stayed pretty strong, but out here, it's faded. You're seeing more silver tones. This looks like maybe some kind of coating or something that's spilled on it over the years, I would say. And then if we look at the bottom,
cool.
The hole is interesting. You know, maybe it was on a 3PO that was dressed on a mannequin at some point.
Even to get some airflow through his feet because he was so hot in the costume.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. There's the big hole, and there's some little holes drilled in it as well. Which maybe it was wired up to something.
Huh.
I don't know. Hard to say what that is.
Could you see the? Oh wait, no, that wouldn't make sense.
See the snaps on the back where they had a little piece that just closed it up. So
I was gonna say, could it have been? My knowledge is very sparse here, but whenever Chewbacca is carrying C-3PO on his back, does he have a foot?
That could be interesting. There probably is a foot in that backpack, and I mean,
that could have been.
It feels like the type of on-set modification they would have made, where they drill a little hole and then wire it in. So maybe it definitely could have been something like that.
That's amazing.
And then the models are
cute.
planning models. Yeah, so these are art department planning models that would have been made at Elstree Studios in the UK, so used for the live action part of the production. And essentially, you've probably seen photos with like Irvin Kershner, and he's got the little viewfinder thing, and he's down on an art department model.
Exactly.
This would have been the models that were in that set.
That's amazing.
So they're pretty basic. You know, they're not like ILM filming models where they're all detailed. It's just giving the representation of the ship, the overall form, so that they can plan those shots.
Right. Could these have been the original models for these ships before they even went to building the intricate ones?
It's a good question. I mean, probably not this one, because this I think is specific to Empire, and obviously they introduced the X-Wing on the first film, but the Snowspeeder was new for Empire. I think the Snowspeeder was probably born more on paper with like McQuarrie and Johnston sketching on paper. And then they probably built this based on some of those sketches. But
so
the interesting
thing, the first physical model of that is
probably the first physical model at Elstree in the UK. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And they're sort of part of larger models, if that makes sense. So it's not necessarily to look at the ships themselves; it's to look at like the whole set for the hangar. There's actually a really good production photo of the Hoth hangar where you see these Snowspeeders with these red stripes down the sides.
Yeah,
like this exact model would have been one of those. And these are interesting too because they're cast plaster.
Oh wow! Yeah.
So this one's heavy. And you can see the white plaster here. These have been repaired at some point, the gun barrels. And they just put in little nails here to serve as the landing gear.
Nice.
So it's super basic.
How cool is that?
Totally effective. I like the weathering on this. You know, I wonder if they use this in like a Dagobah model at some point, and that's why it's all dirtied down.
That's a really good point. That is.
And then this one is similar. I'm pretty sure this is a cast plaster body.
Oh my gosh.
And then the wings are built out of sheets of styrene and then just little pieces of piping to kind of act as the landing gear.
Gosh, I was wondering, because those are very thin, and for it to keep up after all these years is a feat.
Like, I've never seen any of these set models still existing. To have two of them walk in at the same time for an auction is just really neat. And that's one of the most fun parts of our whole thing at PropStore and everything we do, you know, producing these auctions, is seeing what material is going to be unearthed and what's going to come to light that we've never seen before, and what we're going to learn about the films and the filmmaking process, you know, at the same time. So it's a lot of fun. I'm a Star Wars fan. I love seeing stuff like this. It's awesome when new things come in the door.
Now, I need to know more information about this Rebel blaster rifle and, of course, the Empire Strikes Back clapper and all this amazingness.
A few good ones here. So the blaster, this is from Empire, and this is the style of blaster that the Hoth troops carried in their holsters primarily. But I think there's some good production photos where you see them. Maybe you see one or two in the battle that they shot out there in Norway. There's also some really great publicity photos of Billy D. Williams holding one of these, not this exact one, but one of these. And this one is what we would call, let me just take it out here, a production-made example. So this came from someone who worked on the film. It actually came from, I think, the grandson of someone who worked on the film. And they had taken it home as a souvenir, basically. And at that time, it just had the base layer of silver paint, so the paint that we're seeing here on the flash suppressor, and it had these reflectors installed, which they did on most of the blaster props they made for Empire, but it did not have the black paint. So the black paint was put on later just to basically finish it and make it look like it should. It's basically one that, you know, they made for filming, but didn't wind up finishing it or needing it. So it's what we call production made, but it is vintage. It is, you know, from 1978, 79 when they were prepping to shoot Empire. And it's, you know, for me, it's like it's a really memorable design of blaster because, of course, it's the general style from the opening of the first movie, and then it carried on through Empire.
And Empire's the best movie out of the
all right,
three.
All right. Yeah. Hey, we all like Empire.
Empire's great. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's a really fun one.
That would be so cool to have in the collection. And how much do you think that's estimated for?
I think that's 20? Like 12-ish. 12?
Okay.
Yeah. Is the starting bid on that one? Let's see.
It's cheap, right? Yeah.
So let me show you this one. This is a clapper from Empire. And the interesting thing about these clappers is they made them in different sizes. So I guess depending on how tight the shot was going to be framed, they would use a small one, or if the camera's far away, they'd use a much larger one. So this, as I understand it, is like a close-up clapper. So if they're shooting a close-up of someone's face, they hold it in front of the face. I think there's a good photo of Mark Hamill with one of these in the snowspeeder. I don't know if it's this exact one, but it's very similar. And I mean, the thing I love about this is just the aging on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at how worn away the surface is. You got some black gaffers taped there on the front. The original handwritten date from the last time it was used, which is what, 46 years ago, almost, which is crazy. Yeah. And then just the aging on the metal hinge and on the back.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if this said something at some point that's faded, or that was just like pieces of tape they were peeling off to put on the camera or something. And then the other thing that's funny is, if you look at the front, we've got these little holes right here.
Yep.
And that's because after production, somebody took it home and nailed it to their wall.
Of course.
And so that's like a nail from when it was literally on someone's wall probably for years.
Hilarious.
So, but you know, people are really into these little clappers as collectibles because it's so, I think, evocative of the filmmaking process and just really has great charm and character, you know.
Wow.
No offense to the digital slates, but these ones are cool.
Ever since you handed me this, everything shut off in my brain and I could only focus on the fact that I'm holding this right now. Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
Like, this is the Star Wars movie that, as a kid, really hit with me. I mean, A New Hope, of course, because it's the original, but Empire is like...
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. Masterpiece.
That's why, truly. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, it's so small, it could have been used for model miniatures, too,
Maybe,
possibly.
But I think this would have been more live action oriented, because live action is where they really need the clap to sync up the sound.
That's right. Okay, that makes sense.
A lot of what we see come out of ILM are like paper slates, where it's almost just a shot marker. It's just a piece of paper with, you know, the shot written on it, but it doesn't have the actual clapper part.
That's amazing. Am I allowed to
go for it? Yeah.
just a little bit of it.
Yeah.
I'm too scared to do it more than that.
I think it's pretty hardy, but I appreciate you respecting it. Yeah.
Respect is the least I could do.
And in fact, if you look at it right here, this is telling the story of the different sizes. So I guess this is like a small, this is a medium for Indy 3, and then there are larger sizes from there. There's like a, I guess what I would call the large size, which is probably about you know, 50% bigger than that. And then every now and then you'll see a production photo with a giant one where it's like 3 feet across and these guys are holding it like this.
2 people.
Because the camera was miles away and they needed to see it.
That's amazing.
But if you're an indie fan, that's a really fun one too. I also just love how these are all hand painted.
Me too. Like, I like that.
It just tells the story of that era. You know, you wouldn't see anything with a hand painted title on it today.
Right, unless it was like a text that was hand painted or hand
It wasn't
done.
actually hand painted. And then the helmets, this is the Darth Vader touring helmet. So that originally came from the family of someone who worked at ILM. Cool. Not used in the movies, but something they made for promotional appearances, like when they sent Vader on the road to go out to toy stores and that sort of thing.
Right.
And then the helmet over there, you'll recognize as, yes, a
Force
Snowtrooper.
Awakens?
Yep.
Force Awakens? Okay.
Yep, that's Force Awakens Snowtrooper, I think. Which I always thought was a really cool design. These are very McQuarrie-esque.
Very McQuarrie.
Yeah, they drew very heavily, and I just thought really successful design. I wish we saw more of those guys in the movie.
Yeah, they look
think you see them
really
very
good.
much.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much for going through all
in.
these incredible props. I'm just like, I know I'm going to be sitting back later thinking I held the clapper from Empire Strikes Back. And
tell your friends.
Yep, I'll tell everybody. I'm calling my parents right after this, but thank you so much.
Yep.